Stay frosty and head over to easymutt.com for the cheapest mutt coins on the market. And when I say cheapest, I mean it. We're talking 1 million coins for around 40 bucks. Use code DIRECTOR for 5% off. Yo, what up, brothers? It's the Director. Chargers fans, we need to do something, right? While we're all going crazy waiting for the Julio Jones news, which, by the way, I don't think is going to, drop until maybe the beginning of June. There's no guarantees in when we're going to find any information on the Julio Jones situation, so we might as well sit back, relax, and talk a little bit more about Chargers football and the predictions as what we think is going to happen going into the 2021 season. So today's video, which is pretty interesting, I kind of want to talk about the roster, the 53-man roster. What do I think the roster is going to look like at kickoff of the upcoming season? I decided to do it kind of in a fun way. Every once in a while, I like to throw down the Photoshop, give you guys some fun visuals. So, for example, a quarterback, the Chargers are going to have a Justin Herbert. You see a little Justin Herbert in there with Chase Daniel underneath it. Where is the Easton stick? Boy, that's probably going to tick off some fans. So it should be a good one today, guys. I'm going to give you my prediction of the final 53-man roster going into the 2021 season. Of course, there are still moves the Chargers can make, like a Julio Jones, which we're trying not to think about, that could shake everything up. So before we do get started, though, as a reminder, it's coming up soon, guys. We're giving away a couple of jerseys as a gesture of thanks from me to you guys for helping keep the lights on around here and keep this channel growing. First one here, number 56, Lights Out Sean Merriman's going to my members. All you got to do to enter for this one is be a member of my crew. That's it. Sit back, enjoy, and hopefully this goes to a good home here on the 29th. But if you're not a member of my crew, don't worry. We are also giving away the signed Kellen Winslow jersey. Very easy to enter for this one. Number 1, be subscribed. Only subscribers can win. Number 2, hit up the link in the description. Follow the instructions there. Very, very simple to enter, guys. Again, thank you so much for everything we do. We're now on the road to 50K. And with that, let's get into this one. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. And with that, let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. The 2021 Chargers 53-man roster prediction. Again, guys, the Chargers at this point of the offseason do have $20 million to spend, which a lot of people were saying we ought to go out and spend that money, give Justin Herbert as good a shot as anybody to go to the playoffs this season. However, outside of those margins, I think we have a rock-solid idea of what this roster could look like come kickoff. So we're going to start here on the offensive side of the ball. It should be pretty fun, guys, getting a kind of your first preview sneak peek look at what this Chargers team could look like this season. So we're going to start here with quarterback Justin Herbert and Chase Dan. Don't worry, we're going to fill out this field right here and give you guys a full look at the offense. Now, some people might be shocked not to see an Easton stick here, and I get it. There's a lot of Easton stick truthers out there. I really liked what he put down on the field during the preseason of 2019, 2018, and honestly, I thought he had pretty good quarterback to potential. However, Chase Daniel enters the fold. I would say is more of a mentorship into guiding Justin Herbert into this new offensive scheme led by Joe Lombardi, formerly of the New Orleans Saints. And I would say that Chase Daniel, for what they're paying him, for what they want him to do, I would say he's probably going to be our quarterback too. The Chargers could certainly roster 3 quarterbacks, keeping Easton Stick on the roster as well, but I'm going to go ahead and say maybe he doesn't make it past training camp this season. Next up, let's take a look at the running back situation. Now, what's funny here is that the running backs could go a couple of different directions. Now, here I've got Austin Eckler as our running back 1, obviously. And then Joshua Kelly and Larry Roundtree. There is a name missing from this list, and again, some people may not like this, but Justin Jackson, in my opinion, might be a shocker, the man out in camp. And I don't think it's for a lack of production or even talent from Justin Jackson, but the best ability for a football team by any player is availability. And I feel like Justin Jackson, as good as he has struggled to stay on the field, and which honestly, if the Chargers feel very confident that he's going to be healthy this year, he's my no-brainer number 2 running back. However, Joshua Kelly, Larry Roundtree, I don't know what the question marks are around them revolving around injury, but I do think that the Chargers may want some consistency at that depth. Again, another position where maybe they roster 4 players and we can keep Justin Jackson, which I'm really crossing our fingers that he enters the season with us, but that's my logic behind that. Now, of course, Austin Eckler is going to have a fantastic season this year due to the upgraded offensive line. Same thing with Justin Herbert, which I failed to mention as well. So I think pretty no-brainer so far. The Chargers looking pretty strong. Now, at this point of the video, I am going to be turning my camera off. Oh my God, what are you guys going to do? You're lost. But it's okay. I wanted to make sure we had plenty of space to show off the rest of the players here. Next up, wide receiver. Now, the Chargers did go and do something this offseason in drafting Josh Palmer in the 3rd round. And honestly, I think Josh Palmer has as good a shot as anybody to make it into the top 3 at wide receiver, in which case I would see maybe Keenan Allen playing from the slot a little bit more with Williams and Palmer on the outside. However, at this point, without seeing any tape or any practice film or anything like that, I would say the Chargers wide receiver core lines up as such with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and then Tyron Johnson in the slot to add a little bit of that speed, with guys behind him, Jalen Guyton, Joe Reed, KJ Hill, and Josh Palmer, of course. Honestly, pretty solid wide receiver core for the Chargers. I think they're very deep at this position. A lot of Chargers fans, though, still hoping that Julio Jones might be in our stars, and I completely agree, man. Just think about this wide receiver core with Julio Jones. It kind of bumps everything down, and then I would see Keenan Allen maybe operating from the slot a lot this season, which is where he definitely thrives. So our fingers crossed, but still the Chargers have a pretty solid wide receiver core. Next up, the tight end position. All right, guys, tight end. It is a little bit deep for the Chargers because I really liked what I saw at Stephen Anderson. I would say if any tight end gets maybe pushed out during camp, it's going to be Stephen Anderson. I do think that I saw some awesome stuff for him, so I'm hoping that they get to keep him on the roster. Outside of that, Jared Cook, our number 1 tight end going into the season. Honestly, guys, I think a lot of people panic that we don't have a Hunter Henry anymore, which, don't get me wrong, Hunter Henry is a better tight end, but again, the best ability is availability, and I think Jared Cook has been pretty consistent, as well as his talent. I think Jared Cook still offers, at least for this season, very similar talent to Hunter Henry. Not as good, but I would say very serviceable with Justin Herbert this season. Outside of that, Donald Parham and Trey McKitty, Stephen Anderson. I think Trey McKitty, our new rookie, is going to take some time to develop. I think the Chargers want to utilize him more as a blocking tight end. Probably the best on this roster at this point, if I'm not lying. And I also think that Trey McKitty has the potential to work his way up to tight end 2 or tight end 1 in the future, depending on what the Chargers saw in him during the draft. And lastly, guys, probably one of the most exciting parts of this 53-man roster prediction video, the offensive line. This is definitely the unit that has upgraded the most over this offseason, the unit that we should see the most improvement going into the 2021 season. Let's take a look at it here, guys. Honestly, it gets me a little bit giddy seeing this unit for the first time on paper with some visuals. Let's start on the left side here with Rashawn Slater, new rookie acquisition. Honestly, guys, super excited. The Chargers absolutely killed this draft. Rashawn Slater should slate in as a Chargers go-to and very solid, reliable left tackle going forward into the future. Honestly, guys, we got super lucky with this one. And I really don't have any issues with him taking the torch there. And honestly, the Chargers offensive line, because of his presence, looks a lot better immediately. To his right, you'll see Matt Filer at left guard. Again, another very solid signing. I heard a bunch of Steelers fans, kind of groaning that they weren't able to keep them on their roster. That's usually a really good sign. Matt Filer, veteran of the game. Not too old, though. He can definitely play for a long time for the Bolts. And the Chargers did extend him, or not extend, but sign him to a multi-year deal. So he should be with the Chargers for a while. Next up in the middle, Corey Linsley, one of my favorite moves of any team this offseason, even with my Chargers bias. This is definitely the move the Chargers needed to make in order to turn over this offensive line into the future and make it one of the more reliable offensive lines, flipping the narrative from last season of being one of the worst offensive lines in football. Corey Linsley, the best center in football, I would say a top 3 offensive lineman in the league, immediately makes his presence known with the Chargers. And really, honestly, I think this sets up a beautiful narrative for the Chargers offensive line going forward. His leadership, his winning culture kind of mentality, That's going to be contagious along this offensive line. I do think the Chargers will be bringing in more bodies as the years go on, and he's going to be that glue that kind of holds everything together. The Chargers' first year with this offensive line has a better shot because of Corey Linsley at center for the Bolts. To his right, you'll see Oday Abushi, another solid signing. I think he was an ex-Detroit Lion. I see a lot of potential in him, but he does only have a one-year contract with the Chargers, so I'm hoping to see a lot of production out of him this season to get him extended into 2022 and beyond. And then the far right, we're going to see Brian Bulaga, maybe getting up there in age just a little bit, but still solid as ever as long as he's on the field. The Chargers' biggest weakness, or I should say biggest thing to worry about in any given season is injury. We've been hit by the injury bug over and over and over again. I'm sick of it. And Brian Bulaga, of course, battling injuries all last season. We can only hope and pray that he stays on the field. If this unit stays together, guys, going into this season, honestly, we could be looking at a top 5 offensive line in the NFL. This is absolutely astonishing to see what Tom Telesco and brand new head coach Brandon Staley were able to do in this season alone in turning over the offensive line, something Chargers fans have really been screaming for a long time. There's your offense, guys. I know a bit of a longer video today, but a lot to talk about when it comes to the Chargers 53-man roster. Next up, let's get into the defense. This is where things get very interesting. We're going to wipe the slate clean, talk about defense. The offense looks absolutely fantastic. I'm excited. And again, Julio Jones could throw that entire roster, for a loop. It would be awesome to see him on this team. Defense! Let's talk a little defense. Now, first off, let's start with the defensive line here. It's going to be kind of tricky and difficult to visually show you guys what this defense is going to look like on game day, just because of the way Brandon Staley operates. Now, of course, we're moving to a 3-4 defense, so it's going to look a little different from last year, but 3-4 doesn't really mean that's what you're going to see every single week. Not 3-4 as far as base 3-4. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces. The front that I see used a lot with Brandon Staley that's very exciting is the Eagle front, and you can see a lot of different, defensive linemen with their hand in the dirt at any time. So we'll have to wait and see how that shapes out. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera here. We'll start off with the defensive line. Okay, Jerry Tillery, Linval Joseph, and Justin Jones with Christian Covington behind at nose tackle. Now, Linval Joseph, solid nose tackle. When people asked me last year, Director, what was your favorite, free agent acquisition? I always said Linval Joseph. People were shocked I did not say Chris Harris Jr. And it's because Linval does very well what the Chargers needed help at, and that's defending the run. Outside of that, we got Jerry Tillery, Justin Jones. Again, don't feel like that's the solid thing you're going to see on game day, but those are the names that I should see on that defensive line. I think Jerry Tillery playing at defensive end should be very good here in this 3-4 defense, as well as Justin Jones. You could see him at the defensive tackle. You could see him at defensive end at any given time, but this is where the Chargers are really trying to get creative here at the edge. Let's go ahead and put our edge players down here. Of course, Joey Bosa, the heart and soul, the cornerstone of this defense, is going to have his presence felt anytime he is on the field. On the opposite side of him, I have Uchenna Nwosu. Now, if you guys have been watching my channel for a minute, Uchenna Nwosu is going to be one of my breakout players of the 2021 season. I think what Brandon Staley does very well with his players is finding their strengths and playing to them. I think Uchenna Nwosu definitely has the potential to break out in 2021 as the opposite name to get to know of Joey Bosa. I think those two guys could definitely cause some havoc, and rushing from the edge, I'm feeling very excited to see the potential of that. Behind them, you got Kyler Fackrell, offseason acquisition free agent for the Chargers. I see a lot of potential to mix him in there. Then Chris Rump II, one of the Chargers fans' favorite selections in the 2021 draft. I see a lot of potential for him to grow into a solid, rotational player for the Chargers. Next up, linebacker, and again, this is where visually it might confuse some people, but it just made sense visually to put 3 of them on here. As far as linebackers concerned, I think you're going to see 2 as far as like middle linebacker, coverage linebackers in a cover 3 a lot. And those 2 guys are going to be Kenneth Murray and Drew Tranquil. I think those are the 2 guys to watch out for to make impacts right away from the linebacker position. But we threw Kaiser White in there because I'm very OCD about how my graphics turn out. Still very solid, I would say, linebacking core. Kenneth Murray, kind of the leader of that group, somewhat broke out last season. I think the most tackles by a rookie in Chargers history, which is very impressive. And then the return of Drew Tranquil. I think a lot of people forget the sort of impact that Drew Tranquill had last season, and with him leaving due to injury last year, I think a lot of people forgot, how good he can be for this Chargers team. So that duo in the middle with that impressive pass rush, I can see being very, very effective. Next time we got Kazir White, and then underneath them, the backups, Nick Neiman, a new rookie, Christian Covington. Who should be underneath that? That's my bad. That's a graphic error that's going to drive me crazy to the end of my days. Don't worry about that, guys. And then Eamon Bemiga. Oh my God, guys, this is falling off the rails here really fast. This is my nightmare. Either way, very, very solid linebacking core for the Chargers. Now let's move into the unit that a lot of Chargers fans have been a little bit worried about, but honestly, I think is in a pretty good spot right now. That's the cornerbacks, defensive backs. Let's start here with the cornerbacks. Your top three guys right there. Now, again, Brandon Staley could move these guys around a lot. To me, I can see Michael Davis and Chris Harris Jr. on the outside with Asante Samuel playing the slot. And to me, I feel like Asante Samuel and Chris Harris Jr., you could swap those guys around. Chris Harris plays really, really well from the slot. Asante can play really well on the outside. I think the potential there for a solid, trio of cornerbacks is really, really good. Outside of that, though, or maybe I get a little bit nervous, is the depth. We got Brandon Faison out there who's not bad, and then Tevon Campbell, who I've seen some things that get me excited. Outside of that, though, the Chargers may be one injury away from what do we do? So just keep that in mind. A lot of people are hoping the Chargers go after another cornerback via free agency or draft next season. But as far as the available cornerbacks out there, you got like a Richard Sherman, etc., which I don't know if is the right signing for the Bolts. So just kind of cross your fingers that this unit glues really quickly and stays healthy on the field. And lastly, speaking of staying healthy all season, we've got our safeties. Now, of course, featuring Derwin James there on the right side. The return of Derwin James. I don't know if I can be any more clear on this than I have been in my past videos. The return of Derwin James is going to be a massive, massive contributor to this defense going forward. Derwin James, when healthy, is one of the most impactful players in the league when it comes to, how successful and efficient your defense is because of how many different ways you can utilize a Derwin James. You can blitz him, you can play him in the box, you can play him out deep, you can, make him a man coverage with like a talent of like Travis Kelce or Darren Waller. He's that kind of guy that can do everything and do everything at an elite level. So Derwin James, let's throw a prayer circle together and make sure that we're all hoping that he stays on the field. His return, as well as Drew Tranquill and a couple other guys in this roster, is going to be felt. We have to hope that they can stay on the field because, again, when they're there, they take this defensive ranking up a couple spots by themselves. Very excited to see Nasir Adderley on the other side there, free safety. Some Chargers fans, maybe including myself, were hoping we would draft maybe a higher caliber free safety in the early rounds to kind of alleviate the pressure on Nasir Adderley and maybe hope that we find something a little more consistent at the free safety position. Either way, though, I think Nasir Adderley has the makings of a great free safety, perhaps utilized incorrectly last year, perhaps, hitting a rough spot in his career. I think with Brandon Staley, though, all these defensive players have a shot at really shining in this system this year. And I think Nasir Adderley really kind of stands out to me as one of those guys that should thrive and maybe see a massive improvement going into this year. A lot's kind of riding on Nasir Adderley, but I have faith that he can develop into that safety that we were all excited about when we drafted him in the second round. And I do think Brandon Staley is exactly the kind of guy you want in order to make that happen. So that's your Chargers defense. I would say pretty rock solid. There is pretty good depth at some positions, but defensive back is where I'm maybe a little bit worried. We do have Mark Webb, Alohi Gilman back there, backing up Derwin and Nasir. Not bad, but again, we're really hoping for a healthy defense this season. A healthy Chargers defense this year could be top 10, very, very strong contender for maybe top 5. So I don't know, man. I see a lot of potential with this unit, but again, it really depends on their health. And then lastly, just kind of throw it in there, our special teams. Kind of a shocker here. A lot of people seeing, that camp battle between Michael Davis and Alex Kessman, undrafted free agent acquisition. I'm going to go ahead and say, spitballing it here, that maybe Alex Kessman does win out the job. He's got plenty of leg. He was known for his longer field goals back in college, but I do think if the Chargers coaching staff can work on his accuracy, he'll have all the tools to be a very successful kicker in the league. So I'm just going to say maybe Alex Kessman does beat out Michael Badgley. Outside of that, we got long snapper Cole Mazza on the roster and Ty Long. There is your Chargers 2021 final 53-man roster. So in the comment section, guys, what do you think? What do you think of the players that I've kind of predicted to be the Chargers starters this season? What do you think is the likeliness of a maybe huge signing? It doesn't even have to be Julio, but please be Julio, happening before kickoff. The Chargers do have $20 million left in cap space that we're all hoping they do spend. It's time to kind of, throw down the gauntlet for a guy like Justin Herbert. Take him to the playoffs. Take this team to the Super Bowl. And lastly, where do you think the Chargers 53-man roster could use some improvement? We talked a little bit about the defensive backs, maybe some depth at offensive line's not a bad idea too. Let me know in the comment section below. Well, guys, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out if you did enjoy this content. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been the Director. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up. And we got the shirt on today. Stay frosty.